Before we start today's video, we would like to take a minute to talk about today's sponsor, Surfshark. When researching for paranormally listed cases, we try to use every resource available to us, like online streaming. But since we are in Canada, sometimes videos and shows aren't available to us on the major streaming platforms. But thanks to Surfshark, that is no longer a problem. With Surfshark, we can swap your location by changing your IP address. So this means you can unlock all different types of content on Netflix or any other streaming platform from around the world. That means if you're into British TV, just take a few seconds and change your location to the UK and unlock a library full of shows just on British Netflix. Or say you're into anime, just use Surfshark and simply quick connect to Japan and you will have tons of anime to watch. Not only does Surfshark work on your computer, but it also works on your mobile devices. All you have to do is download the app, log in, and you're ready to start using Surfshark, with just one account across all devices. So that means if you're out of your country on holidays and you just got addicted to that new favorite show, just change your virtual location back to your home country and start watching where you left off. But not only does Surfshark change your virtual location, it also secures your online data. A VPN encrypts your online data and helps you secure your personal information. Surfshark also does not monitor, track, or store what you do online. So if you're traveling and using free Wi-Fi, just turn on Surfshark and use your device like at home. But you'll be protected from hackers trying to steal your information. As a bonus, Surfshark also has additional products to give you total privacy and protection, including alerts, which monitors your personal data and checks for potential breaches, all while giving you real-time alerts, and antivirus protection and hide from search engines, so you can browse without a trace and avoid those personal ads. For our viewers, Surfshark has an amazing deal going on right now. Go to surfshark.deals/paranormally or just click on the link below and use the promo code paranormally and receive 3 months free. Also, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk to try it out. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to click on the link in the description box below. By doing so, you'll help support Paranormally Listed.
Number 3. Emma Voelcker. Some of the saddest ghost stories are those stories that involve children. The mere thought of a child's life being cut short is upsetting enough, and then add into the mix the unimaginable circumstances and how many ghost children meet their ends, and the stories become distressing. If you ever venture to the Magnolia Hotel in Seguin, Texas, you might encounter a little ghost named Emma. The hotel is now owned by husband and wife team Jim and Aaron Getty, and they supposedly have evidence of Emma. The hotel began as a 2-room cabin in 1840, and the hotel's tragic history began when the first owner was murdered. So it would seem that gruesome deaths were always part of the fabric and history of this particular location. Soon it grew from a 2-room cabin to a stagecoach station and then became a 3-room hotel. The changes to the hotel didn't end there. In the 1850s, it then became an apartment building. The apartment building was left unoccupied in the 1990s. Then in 2013, Jim and Aaron Getty came into the picture and they purchased the property. The ghost who still roams the premises is Emma Voelcker. On July 22, 1874, Emma was 12 years old. She was the daughter of Julius and Louise. Julius and Louise were friends with Wilhelm and Helena Faust. Wilhelm was a pharmacist, and on this fateful day, he was staying at the Magnolia Hotel. He was there on a work trip. Louise and Julius lived in New Braunfels, and Helena was staying with them while her husband was away. It would shock you to know at this point in the story that Wilhelm was Emma's murderer. I'm sure you're wondering what his motive was. Why would he murder his friend's child? Well, it turns out she wasn't even the target. The background of this twisted story is that Wilhelm was in love with his wife's sister, so much so that he decided to leave the Magnolia Hotel on July 22, 1874, and ride to Julius's and Louise's home where his wife Helena was staying. He carried an axe with him, ready to end his wife's life in order to be with her sister. When he arrived at Julius's and Louise's home, it was night, and they were all tucked into bed. But being the genius that he was, Wilhelm swung his axe, thinking he knew exactly where his poor wife would be sleeping. Helena would normally be sleeping on the floor beside Emma's bed, but this time, Emma was on the floor. So when Wilhelm swung his axe, he hit Emma and killed her. When he realized he hadn't hacked his wife, he hit her with the axe. He then ran. His wife ended up surviving, but she was blinded in the attack. Wilhelm was located and questioned about the attack. He didn't seem very interested in the attack, even though it involved his wife. You would think he would, at the very least, feign concern about a young child's murder, his own wife losing her vision, and a culprit on the loose, but he didn't seem to be bothered. Ultimately, he ended up admitting to the murder of little Emma at his trial in October 1875, but he didn't stop confessing there. Apparently, this wasn't the first murder he committed, and he decided to come clean about other events at the trial as well. However, it's not clear how many people he killed because those records are lost to time. Even though he admitted to being the culprit, his wife, Helena, was never convinced it was him. People were so enraged by his case that they wanted him to be hanged, but he only received life in prison. Because of a mob that tried to take justice into their hands and hang him themselves, he was moved to the Como County Courthouse. But this didn't keep him safe. He met his end on July 28, 1876, when someone shot him through the cell window. It was never discovered who shot him. While it's likely no one except Helena mourned Wilhelm's death, many people attended Emma's funeral. However, Emma found her way to the Magnolia Hotel herself. The current owners, Aaron and Jim, posted footage online in which an unseen figure is seen playing with toys. The toys move around seemingly by themselves, but Jim and Aaron believe it's Emma playing with them as the activity occurs in the children's playroom. Aaron and Jim have also seen a shadowy figure in the room as well that they believe is a caretaker named Mrs. Reed, who looks after the young Emma. Interestingly, it seems that years of observing Emma in her room have caused the Gettys to investigate what really happened on that fateful night. They believe that the anonymous murderer of Wilhelm was actually Emma's father. They also question if Wilhelm was Emma's killer or if he was even involved at all. Aaron said that Emma started appearing at the hotel when they were beginning the remodeling process, and in her interactions with the Gettys, she began to drop clues about who her real murderer was. They said it wasn't Wilhelm, but someone who admitted to the crime while they were at death's door only 4 years after Emma's gruesome murder. That was all the information that Emma has provided. Although Emma had a sad end, it seems like she's playing and having fun in her afterlife, and luckily she has the Gettys providing her with lots of toys. Number 2. Twin Bridges Orphanage. The next story is sadly not about one child, but a group of children. The story takes place at the Montana State Orphanage in Twin Bridges, Montana, which was later called the Montana State Children's Center. It opened in 1894 and closed in the mid-1970s. Throughout the time it was open, it housed over 5,000 children. During the Great Depression, 400 children lived in the orphanage. Some of these children had parents who were alive, but could not financially care for them. Other children were there, of course, because their parents had passed away. There are many good qualities about the orphanage. For example, the children learned life skills and received an education. There are also areas for extracurricular activities, including a swimming pool and a place to play outside. But there was also some horrifying stories that occurred within their doors. Many who led to the orphanage told us stories of neglect and abuse. Children suffered from depression and were punished by being locked in dark rooms or even hanged on coat hooks. While many survived to tell the tale of what happened, some children died while living there. A plaque on the property is dedicated to the children who never made it out alive. With this history, it should come as no surprise that there are still children who haunt the orphanage to this day. Leslie Adams, who has been the property owner since the early 2000s, has reported hearing children's voices, even children singing, in some of the buildings. Adams has said that over time, she is no longer afraid of the buildings as she once was. Because of the reports of ghosts, many ghost hunters have traveled to Montana to investigate themselves. Many have heard scratching, seen unexplained lights in the room, and have also heard footsteps. Perhaps it's the souls of the children who felt neglected when they lived there, who are still struggling and hoping to make themselves known, seen, and acknowledged. Number 1. Donnie Goss. The final story is that of Donnie Goss, who was murdered on July 24, 1946, in the Canadian province of Alberta. He was 6 years old at the time. However, the story of Donnie's murder doesn't start on July 24th. It actually begins on July 5th, 1946, at another Canadian province farther west, British Columbia, with the murder of another little boy named Gary Billings. The two murders were committed by one man, Donald Sherman Staley. Staley was in Vancouver, British Columbia, when he encountered 11-year-old Gary and his friend, Bobby Sherman. Staley spent the day with them, they had some treats together, and he gave the boys some money. He then encouraged them to see him the next day, and he said he'd give them some more money. Gary went the next day by himself, and he was never heard from again. Then a few weeks later, on St. George's Island in Alberta, 6-year-old Donnie Goss was playing by himself when Staley lured him behind the bushes. Donnie was never seen by his family alive again. On June 8th, the body of 6-year-old Donnie Goss was found behind some bushes on St. George's Island. He had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and stabbed to death. Coincidentally, 11-year-old Gary Billings' body was found the same day in a shallow grave in a park in Vancouver. He had also been sexually assaulted, beaten, and stabbed to death. It's possible that Staley would have gotten away with both murders had he not broken into the Diamond Cafe in Calgary, Alberta on August 8, 1946. He stole a few items, but this set off a chain of events that led to his conviction. Bobby Sherman, Gary's friend, was back in British Columbia helping police to identify the man he spent the day with before Gary was murdered. A police officer had also encountered Staley on the day he spent with Gary and Bobby, and he helped collect evidence and information. The police of British Columbia found out that Staley was in Lethbridge, Alberta, and they went to speak with him. He confessed to sexually assaulting and murdering both boys. He was hanged on December 8, 1946, at the same time as 4 German POWs. It turned out to be the largest public execution in Canadian history. Unsurprisingly, this horrific death led to Donnie's spirit remaining on Earth. In the location where he was brutally murdered now stands the Zoo Bridge for the Calgary Zoo. Many people visiting the zoo have heard or seen some strange occurrences. Some have reported hearing a young boy under the bridge by the zoo calling for help. The cries were so convincing that many people have even called the police, worried that the child is actually calling out for help. The police arrive only to find no one there. The staff at the zoo have also heard knocking on doors, and they have even thrown a ball out of their office only to find it sitting in front of the door later. People have also apparently seen Donnie's apparition. One time, a child at the zoo said a little boy named Donnie asked him to play. It would seem that Donnie is making his presence known in more ways than one, and in ways that actually force people to question if it's a real boy calling out to them, or ask them to play, or simply a figment of their imaginations. Ultimately, these stories are so much more difficult to hear because they involve children, and children dying in ways that are so horrific that they're hard to imagine. Maybe they maintain their presence so that their stories are never forgotten. Maybe they stick around to remind us how we should treat the youngest and most vulnerable among us. Or perhaps they're still around because their lives were cut so short and they're trying to spend more time here on Earth than they were previously allowed. Unfortunately, these are lessons that we still need to hear, so hopefully these children continue doing their work and continue reminding us to look out for our young people. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.